who you choose as your heroes and the voices that you're going to listen to are going to have a profound shaping effect on what you define as success.
This is the Abundant Journey Podcast, and I am your host, Nick James, with my co-host, Nick Offenkamp. We are a podcast dedicated to bringing you stories of entrepreneurs, their journeys, the things that they have done well in life. But let's dive into today. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm good. This is usually the point in the show where I make some sort of veiled allusion to how great our guest is, but I'm not able to do that this morning because, man, the guest, it's just you and I, which I guess is not even really a guest. We're just the hosts talking back and forth. But yeah, man, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I always love, clearly we just love talking to each other, and we spend a lot of time brainstorming ideas, things that are on our mind, entrepreneur endeavors, and all of that stuff. So hopefully our audience finds value in these hangout sessions, really. When we don't get to hang out, we just decide to get on and record an episode together.
That's exactly right. And that's because, half the time when we're having a conversation anyways, we kind of feel like afterwards, shoot, we should have recorded that. We would have saved ourselves some time. But yeah, man, what's on tap for today?
Well, we had a recent episode where we dove in and I think spent some time talking about the nuggets of wisdom that seem to be a common theme from the guests that we have spent so much time with. And, again, we're over 1 year at this point. We are marching as fast as we can toward 100 episodes. We got a while to get there. But I think we want to continue to do that because not only is it amazing to have those conversations around their stories, but there's so many lessons in there for us as we're embarking on our different entrepreneur channels and lanes, but also I think for our audience and those who are maybe thinking about getting started. So today we wanted to really dive into a buzzword topic, and we wanted to hit the topic of hustle culture. And I could continue to start talking all about hustle culture, but maybe I'm going to kick it over to you because that's a topic that really is in, I think, news, social media, and you have all different opinions on what hustle culture should look like for especially entrepreneurs. So what's your take on the topic?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably helpful to bring some sort of definition to hustle culture. And frankly, this is not something where I've, crafted some beautiful, widely accepted definition of it. So really going off of the cuff, and probably will dance around it until coming up with something that's succinct. But definitely, like, the hallmarks of hustle culture are this mentality of that you've just got to grind and grind and grind and sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice until you reach your goals, whether that's in entrepreneurship, building a successful business, whether that's growing a particular following on social media or having some large platform and audience, or whether that's just obtaining a certain amount of wealth, typically financially speaking. And so it's kind of this idea of that, like, put everything else in your life on the back burner or take it off of the burners entirely so that you can focus all of your efforts on growing your business, growing your audience, growing your income. And that's kind of the idea of the hustle. Perhaps, one of the greatest, players in the hustle culture, like the quintessential hustle culture guy that I think of is like a Grant Cardone, just
totally
10x everything. It's don't stop until you've 10x'd, and that whole mentality. So what would you add to that, or kind of what are some other things that you would include in hustle culture, whether definition or kind of players in that space?
I don't know that I'd add anything to the definition, and that's why I kicked it to you, because even though you said you were going to try to piecemeal it together, I knew that you would come up with a much more eloquent example and description of it than me. But I think to go a little bit further and add to what you've said, I don't think it's just in the world of being an entrepreneur. I think of like the David Goggins of the world, where,
Yeah.
he continuously day after day beats his body down. Or I think of an Alex Hermosi who, similarly, he is, hey, I love working. All I do is work and work out. And that's my life. And that satisfies me and I'm happy. And so I think to go a little bit further, it's interesting because a lot of the people who are in this hustle culture world and are the most vocal, they're really successful. And I think that as they've been successful and done incredible things, it's really easy to say, hey, my hustle has landed me where I am. It's what I credit my success to. And I think the question really comes to my mind, can you be successful without being like them? And there's things from each of those three guys and other people who are in the hustle culture space that I love. There's things that I embrace. There's things and pieces about their lives that I'm like, I do want to be more like them in that area. I can tell you when we're working out in the gym, I'm playing David Goggins in my ears because there's a motivational level that it encourages me to give more. It encourages me to push harder than maybe I would normally want to. So I'm not, and I don't think you are either, really trying to knock those guys as much as to say, is there a different way to play the game than the way that they say you have to play it in order to be successful?
Yeah. I mean, success is an interesting word, right? Because success also requires a definition and different sense of definition than what I meant by defining hustle culture. I mean, success has to be individually defined as to what that means and what that looks like. And so when you look at a David Goggins, like clearly success is just pushing the human body to its ultimate limits, or proving that you're limitless in what you're physically able to do. And for Hermosi, success looks like growing a billion-dollar portfolio of businesses in public. And for Cardone, I mean, it seems like success is just stacking more and more money upon money. And it's really easy on social media, or as you're listening to those guys and watching what they're doing and what they're talking about, to get caught up in their own definitions and aims of success, because you watch David Goggins and you see the unbelievable things that he's able to do with his body, the feats of endurance, and it's extremely impressive. And you think, man, I'd like to be able to do that. Like that's a great picture of physical success. Or you look at Hermosi and the influence that he's gained through social media and the wealth that he's creating in businesses. And it's, you look at that and you think, man, that's incredible success. But what you don't typically see on social media is all of the things that we may define as failures when it comes to relationships, or when it comes to, again, I'm not picking on any one of these guys, but it's just like whether it's relationships, whether it's sleep, whether it's diet, whether it's having a family. I don't think any of those guys have kids that I'm aware of. And anyhow, so really, the danger, I think, for most people in hustle, for most of our audience, for you and I, as we look on in hustle culture, is that we take on these other definitions of success, and in so doing, we lose sight of other things that we would hold important, like relationships with wife, kids, extended family, making time for friends, making time for rest, making time for vacations, having a little bit more of a a balanced life. I don't know though, man. What do you think of for one, you can add to kind of some of the cautions that I'm giving there related to the definition of success, but I'm also curious, what do you think of that idea of balance? Because I've heard people within that, the leaders among hustle culture, talk about how balance is not something that's achievable or not something that's even desirable to aim for, and I've got thoughts on that, but I am really curious
Yeah.
what you think about it.
No, when you start talking about balance, I think of like the Tom Brady, or somebody like him who, there was no balance for him for what, 18, 20 years. Now, he's arguably the greatest, and it pains me to say it since I've never been a Tom Brady guy, but it pains me to say that he's arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, right?
Hey, those
He's held
Super
up.
Bowl rings don't lie, man.
They don't lie. Oh, it hurts. But, even in that, he balance wasn't in his definition. A Kobe Bryant, a Michael Jordan, like the greatest of the greats, as we would look at any field, I don't know that any of them were balanced. But I think then it ultimately comes down to what are your values and what are your things that you pursue and your highest priorities in life. And so realistically, if you're striving to be a Kobe Bryant, a Michael Jordan, a Grant Cardone, honestly, and I'm okay saying this, we're probably not the podcast for you. I think you and I look on and we say, hey, we want to be successful and we want to achieve different milestones in our lives and in our business endeavors. But I think about a Dave Ederer, as you and I have so oftentimes referred to him. He's episode 50 on the podcast. Go back and listen to it if you haven't. But Dave Ederer is a man who has bought and sold 35 plus businesses over his 40-year career. And Dave Ederer has not only reached the financial success to provide for his second or third generation, but on top of that, he's regularly meeting with people who have cancer, and he's on boards, and he's selflessly gives of his time. And so I think about somebody like that. And as you look to aspire to be like different people, that's the kind of person I think you and I are striving for. And I think that's why we hold so dearly to the 5 F's of Abundant Journey, because you were talking about what success looks like. And for us, success isn't a billion-dollar business. It isn't making so much money and having millions of followers on social media. Success is rooted in the 5 F's of Abundant Journey: family, having healthy, strong, really good relationships with our wives, and then our kids. Faith, that's such an integral part of us, and I think a driving force of why we try to be in the workforce. Finances, yeah, we want success. Yeah, we want to be able to go and hang out and do amazing things with our family and be able to give to others. Fitness is huge because we know that, and as we've talked with so many guests, if we're not healthy, if you don't have your health, you don't have any of the other stuff. And then ultimately future, what are we grinding towards? But you and I look at success, and I think a lot of our guests and hopefully our audience looks on and says, yeah, success isn't like those guys that we've been talking about. Success is these things. And I think that's the difference between really what we strive for at Abundant Journey versus that hustle culture mentality. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I think, you mentioned Tom Brady, and, I think a lot of listeners will have already connected the dots, but just the idea of, his final season of football, his marriage blew up and ended in divorce. And, his ex-wife doesn't have a lot of great things to say about him and his involvement with the kids. I also think of Steve Jobs as kind of one of those early innovators, hustle culture kind of guy, maybe a model for a lot of entrepreneurs when they think of what success in entrepreneurship looks like. But
Yeah.
when it comes to family and people that were close to him, Steve Jobs pretty much died alone.
Hmm.
And And so, yes, as I think about defining success and as I think about what we're building here, um, you and I, we don't want the Tom Brady or the Steve Jobs life. Like, you can give me all the money, all the business success in the world, but if I'm dying alone, if I don't have my wife and kids alongside of me in that, like at the end, um, none of it is worth it in the
Yeah.
end, and that that we have to see that there's something greater than simply stacking millions upon millions of dollars. There's something greater than having a big following. There's something greater than even what Goggins is accomplishing in fitness. And so and the reason that I bring that up is because I think as we talk about hustle culture, that I can almost feel a little bit guilty of this sort of like, oh, are you saying that you shouldn't give your all? Are you saying that you shouldn't do your best? Are you saying that you should sell yourself short? I don't think that that's what we're saying. I think that actually
Totally.
what we're saying is that no, that there's greater things, that there's more important things, and that success in business, success financially, is actually just a means to even greater ends when it comes to what ultimately matters in life: having healthy and strong relationships, leaving a lasting and enduring legacy, building making the world a better place than you found it, through whether generosity or through the businesses that you build and the ways that those things serve not just your family, but are a blessing to the community around you,
Yeah.
or even more. And so I do think that that's a helpful kind of qualifier. And I think that there's a lot of people that are hungry for that. That is, they've gone deeper and deeper into hustle culture, and they're grinding and grinding and grinding. I think that there's a lot of people of our generation, a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, and they're just feeling burnt out, and they're feeling like, man, is this what the good life is? Because this this sucks. Like, I don't actually want Alex Hermosi's life. I don't actually want to be David Goggins, as cool as he looks on social media.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on, and I think there's a growing list of people who are told this is how you need to spend your life. And honestly, one of my biggest fears, genuinely, is that I wake up and I realize once I've achieved this cloud idea of what the good life was, that I look back and say, "Oh shoot, I missed the journey." And that begs a different point. I talk about it, and we've started asking this question to a few of our guests. Are you a journey person or a destination person? What are your thoughts on that? How would you define the two, and how do they work side by side?
Yeah, I think that that's really good. Like a destination person is the person that like has they set their Google Maps. They say that, okay, the end place that I want to go is, here we are in Washington State, so I want to go to Disney World in Florida. And so they set it in Google Maps and then load up the family in the car, and then they just hit the gas pedal and go. And anytime that somebody complains about, wanting to get out and stop, no, we got to get there. No, we're not taking any detours. We're going. You get frustrated by traffic jams, frustrated by construction, because the end goal is the destination. We're going to get to Disney World as fast as we can because that's where the fun is, versus a journey person who says like, all right, Disney World is the goal, but what we're really going to highlight is the journey. We're going to stop at some national parks, and we're not going to rush ourselves or push ourselves to get there, because we're going to find ways to make it special, memorable, meaningful, throughout whatever path we get. And they're the person too that, like, if all of a sudden, you can't make it to the final destination because of sickness or illness, or you have to make an adjustment, they accept that as part of the journey, and just,
Yep.
open-handedness to, like, okay, we're going to take what life gives us and make adjustments along the way. But what's important is being present and making the best of the moment that we have right now. That's the analogy that, comes to mind off of the cuff. How do you think about destination versus journey?
I love that. And that concept to me has been one, I think, a lot in this year that I've really had to press into. Both of us have 3 little kids. Anybody who has older kids or adult kids, they always look at us, you and I both, and say, hey, enjoy it. Goes by in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And I think naturally, being an entrepreneur, being somebody who's driven for success, being somebody who's trying to build and build big things, set big goals, go big places, I think you just naturally are bent on being a destination person. And at least that's been my experience. It's, hey, we're going somewhere. We have this goal. The measurement of success in life is, did we hit it or did we not? And recognizing, I think, not only to your point of enjoying the journey, because that's truly what we're left with, but that's really all we have today and what we're promised for today. Because you and I both know tomorrow's not certain. 10 years from now, there's no guarantee. Whether it's sickness or life changes, we know that everything continues to change. And so I think the more and more that we can strive to be journey people, I think that's truly the more epic the story. And I know I say it that way because Alex Hormozy talks about, sacrifice whatever you can to hit that dream and goal, because that will make for an epic story. But I really think the epic story is in the journey. And that's why I love the fact that we have the podcast called Abundant Journey. What is the journey to abundance, and what does that look like? And I think that speaks to the core of who we are and the guests that we have on. And speaking of those guests, I kind of said it here at the beginning of the episode, we want to pull some nuggets from wisdom. Who are some people that come to mind for you with guests we've had on that maybe exemplify this balance with hustle culture, or exemplify this journey mentality versus that destination mentality?
Yeah. I mean, you already mentioned the GOAT with Dave Ederer, and what a refreshing thing that was to see a guy who's in his 80s, who has been, far more successful than most people could ever imagine in terms of building a successful business and financially leaving a legacy. But, how awesome it was for his son to pop in the middle of that interview, to see the affection that existed there between father and son, the way that Dave speaks about his daughter, the way that he speaks about his wife, the way that he speaks about his close friends, like more than all of the money he has, the thing that was most impressive to me about Dave is just how relationally rich his life is, which I think is something that is exceedingly rare. And I know that we've had many, many guests on that exemplify that as well. But my mind most quickly goes to Dave, in part just because of, he's relative to most of our guests, he's so much closer to that finish line, and it's so obvious how well poised he is to finish well. Are there other folks that really come to mind for you?
It's funny. As I reflect back, we've had folks who are at the beginning of their journey.
Right.
And they're grinding and they're working really hard and they're building big things. And then there is some of our guests who are at the end of their business journey, and they get to sit down and reflect more on what that journey has looked like. And I love both, because I think there is such an allurement and a draw to hustle culture. That's why it sells. That's why there's so many of us that follow those people because those successful individuals, as the world deems success, we look on and say, wow, they've been able to accomplish what 99% of the world doesn't or hasn't. What do they do different? And so we're drawn to that. And I think we want to strive to be like that in a lot of ways. It's very easy to want to be like that. And so what we're talking about today is something so different. But going back to the guests that we've had on, I think about a Jeff McCullough who has built a business for 40 years and he's handing it off to his sons here in the next few years. And there was a shift for him halfway through his journey of, all right, I've got enough for my needs and my family's needs. There's a real stewardship that comes with my employees and their families. And so there was this shift of, hey, I don't need to keep grinding to building this to $1 billion a year business. And of course, he would say, hey, if that happens, great. Like, I would love to be the premier lumber distributor in the Northwest. And so, but there's also like, that isn't the sole focus. That isn't the driving force. The driving force for him at this point is his employees and his family and those that he's been entrusted with. And so I think there's a way to do it. And maybe we can land the plane a little bit with some just practical, how do you grind? How do you work hard? How do you set your sight on your big goals to make a difference, but yet not lose your soul in the process? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think having mentors and people that you really admire and look up to is so key. And because it's like, who you choose as your heroes and the voices that you're going to listen to are going to have a profound shaping effect on what you define as success. And so that's the danger of, being on social media and having a feed that's constantly filled with Cardone post after Hermosi post after Goggins post, is that you kind of have this singular idea of success reinforced versus, what we're trying to build here with Abundant Journey and giving an alternative to that with the guests that we're bringing on so that you can have an opposing, not just voice, but story like a Dave Eder or Jeff McCullough to look at and see an alternate vision of the good life and shift your perspective of, okay, Grant Cardone was my hero, but actually I think that Dave has a better quality of life. And so now, what did he do? And starting to ask those questions and starting to say, all right, how do I emulate or put some of those things that he's done into practice? Or whoever that is, that as you just look on at the people around you, look at the quality of life of people that are getting up there towards the end of their career, and just think, all right, how do I become more and more like that person? And then I think, trying to be really practical here, but the thing that I just constantly need to be reminded of is the preciousness of time and the unique seasons of life that we have. And so you alluded to us having young children, and there's kind of this time for every parent where you've got 10, 13 years that are like really significant time that can just never ever be replaced, where like your kids are in your home and where they look to you as somebody who can do no wrong and they love you, want to be with you. And it's not that parent-child love like ever needs to come to an end, but as they get into their teenage years, start to establish more independence, start to take that, it's a healthy trajectory towards becoming their own people, adults. Anyway, just what I'm trying to say though is really recognizing that, like, okay, in this season of life, I've got this small finite period of time where my kids are young and where I get to have the highest degree of impact, and that's time that I can just never get back. I'll never be able to buy it back. And so I really have to watch myself on like, okay, yes, I have goals to grow the tartan team and we have goals to grow the podcast here, and there's certain financial goals and metrics and things that I think would be really great to hit. But once those things start to creep into the quality of my relationship with my wife or with my kids, that's when I know, okay, I got to pull back on the work side and readjust so that I'm more present in the one place that I'm not going to have an opportunity to do over, the one place that I'm irreplaceable, because hopefully I got a long life ahead of me where I'm able to build businesses and make money and pursue those kinds of dreams. But gosh, I would hate to look back in 20 years and, be financially set, but just feel like I missed the best years of parenting.
No, that's so good. And I think the quote of the podcast episode here just came from you. You won't be able to buy your time back with your kids. Ooh, that cuts deep. And that's solid. I think that's a good word and a good reminder for anybody, with young kids. And I think, we have to remember that we are in the present. That's what we have. That's what we're given. I do say somebody who I appreciate more and don't align with everything he says, but Gary Vee is another entrepreneur, and he spends a lot of his time, one, reminding all of us about the journey. And most of us, barring something crazy happening in our lives, we have decades and decades to grow and learn. And then also rethinking what is most important. It isn't $1 billion in the bank. It's right. Happiness and joy and relationships and people. And so I do appreciate him in that regard. And like I said, I don't agree with everything he says, but he's one where I think is pushing that message that I align with a bit more. So I think those are super good. I think they're great nuggets. I think the other thing as we wrap up that I might just include in this is it's okay to catch your breath, to give yourself some grace, to give yourself a reminder that you're not going to do it perfect. We're going to make mistakes. There's times that I find myself being really driven toward success and working on the business and working on things that we got going on. And then I think just like you, there can be that healthy gut check of, oh, I need to pull back on the reins a little bit. It doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It doesn't mean you're not going to reach your goals. But recognizing that this is a long runway, it truly, to take from Goggins, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think at the end of the day, just keeping moving forward, getting better 1 degree every day. And I think that message needs to be heard a whole lot more than, do you want to fly an airplane and make $1 billion? Come do what I did. That's my opinion.
100%, man. 100%. Well, this is really good. A little bit of housekeeping here at the end. Listeners, thanks so much for engaging. Please do, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend. One of the most exciting things that has happened in recent months is that we are now very active on YouTube. And so, if you'd like to look at the pretty face of the real Nick James, rather than just listen to him, you can do that by just searching Abundant Journey on YouTube. We should be the top ones to come up. It also is super helpful if you subscribe to us there. That makes sure that, one, you don't miss any new episodes, and two, it pleases Google's algorithm to help other people find the content here.
Yeah.
So thank you all. You're the reason why we do this show, and enjoy the journey as Nick has been saying. And in the meantime, enjoy the journey. We'll be back soon.
Audience, as always, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. We will see you next time for another great episode.